who will actually represent EXA, and then we'll have the DG doing a presentation, and then we'll have the keynote address from Professor Dr. the Premier of the Northwest. So thank you very much for just bearing with us, and we appreciate your availability here and your attendance. Thank you.
Good morning. So the theme of this conference is decolonizing the fourth industrial revolution. And the main message is, don't fear the fourth industrial revolution, embrace it. So I'm just here to set the scene for the conference, and then we're very fortunate to have the presenters from Engineering Council, from our government, our local government, to explain to us why and how we can, where we can use technology to embrace this. I prefer to use the word fourth industrial evolution and not a revolution. Evolution is not this thing that you must fear. It's not this thing that must be broken down. Evolution is something that you grow with. Those of you who have teenagers know that we're already evolving. You know your teenagers is doing things differently than you, and you didn't teach them to do that. So we're not here. I'm very, very grateful for all of my colleagues from the DSI, from NRF, from EXA, from CIR, as well as within our faculty, within our university. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, but we also have the Dean of the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences here. We have Deputy Deans from Health Sciences, from Humanities, because engineering is not working in a silo. Engineering is applied science. And we can only embrace the fourth industrial revolution if we work together. So that is just for me to set the scene for this conference. And I now have the privilege to introduce our DVC to do the welcoming, followed by the other presenters.
Dumelang Bagaejo. It's a cold day today. But I think what Prof. Lizel was trying to do was to also just get us to relax. I've been asking people, I've been saying let's prepare for fourth industrial revolution. I'm asking, when is it arriving? So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and I welcome you to the Northwest University Mafikeng campus. I bring greetings from our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dan Padi, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today because we have a council meeting at one of our campuses, the Val campus. But he says hello and enjoy the day. Program directors, allow me to acknowledge the following, our Premier of the Northwest Province, Professor Deboho Mokgoro, Dr. Phil Mjwaha, Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, Mr. Christopher Zazawane from the Engineering Council of South Africa, representatives from the Department of Science and Innovation and its entities, the NRF, thank you for providing funding for the conference, CSIR, University Management present, Nissan colleagues, various government departments present, representatives from different companies and universities, exhibitors, conference attendees, learners from various schools in Mahikeng Northwest University, staff and students, members of the media fraternity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Department of Science and Innovation and its entities for bringing UNESCO Engineering Conference to the Northwest University. But I am told it's not just engineering, it's a multidisciplinary conference. This conference has afforded over 100 secondary school learners an opportunity to attend the coding workshop the other day that was presented by the CSIR Center for High Performance Computing on Monday and Tuesday. We expected about 450 learners from the local schools to visit the conference exhibition hall and attend the engineering and science insight programs to get information about possible engineering, science careers. I am a member of the Methodist Church, and the theme in my church is that we're shaping tomorrow today. And I guess that's what we're doing with these young ones. And as Malcolm X said, education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Our dream as the Northwest University is to be an internationally recognized university in Africa, distinguished for engaged scholarship, social responsiveness, and ethic of care. We've tried very hard to maintain a pass rate of 84%, and we don't want to go higher. We are fine with 84%. Because once we go higher, then it will be questionable that now they're getting 100%. And we've been doing very well in the field of research. But as I said earlier, that our focus is on engaged scholarship. Therefore, teaching and learning must be part of what is happening in the community. They must know what they are learning is something that is relevant for the communities. And our research also that is done in the communities, conducted in the communities, it is about things that are happening in the community. I like what Johan Mouton says, that in our everyday life, we've got solutions for problems. But if we want to now know more about what is it that is happening in these communities, then we expose that to research. Therefore, communities are very important. Therefore, community engagement is one of our core functions as this university. Our desire is to prepare students for the future by offering quality and relevant education and research that is responsive to our communities and our country. The NDP is expecting a lot from us, and therefore, as universities, we have to be ready to ensure that we reach that target of the PhDs. But we also equip our students with skills, knowledge that will benefit not only South Africa, but the continent as a whole. And of course, they will still be relevant to participate globally. It is therefore our greatest pleasure to have all of you here, where you will be sharing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise with all of us. I want to wish you the best, and thata mo setheong sa rona sa Northwest sa Mahikeng. I thank you.
At the engineering conference, it's appropriate to give an opportunity for the Engineering Council of South Africa. So I would like to welcome Christopher Tswatswana to give us a few words on the Engineering Council.
This one must use that. Okay. This one is full of streaming. Okay. So just keep it.
Political principals present, chancellors and vice-chancellors of different universities, fellow colleagues from the Engineering Council of South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. That's better. My name is Christopher Tsatsawane. I must register an apology on behalf of my line manager, the Chief Executive Officer of the Engineering Council of South Africa, Mr. Sipho Madonsela, who unfortunately couldn't make it due to other commitments. Program Director, this year basically marks the 6th annual South African UNESCO Engineering Conference. And each year, the thematic discussions, exhibitions, and participation has been robust and intriguing. This is the 6th year of the Engineering Council of South Africa's participation. And as the Engineering Council of South Africa, we are quite delighted to be once more and once again part of this conference. The topic on the 4th Industrial Revolution has been extensively discussed by academia, the public, and the public sector in South Africa and around the world. This phenomenon has gained increased momentum in South Africa, with President Cyril Ramaphosa in his State of the Nation Address 2019. He stated that South Africa has a choice between being overtaken by technological change or harnessing it to serve our development aspirations. At the first Digital Economic Summit hosted by the 4th Industrial Revolution Partnership between Wits University, University of Johannesburg, Fort Hare, Telkom, Vodacom, and other stakeholders, an alliance was declared which aimed at accelerating the development of an inclusive, coherent, national responsive to the 4th Industrial Revolution for South Africa, and this was based on research. In this very summit, the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, said, I quote, "Our nation is forging a digital compact that is a critical contributor to our development as a nation. A digital compact with economic justice and social benefit and innovation at its heart." Close quote. At the very same summit that I am referring to, the president also reiterated that South Africa must take a lead in order to ensure that we collectively harness the opportunities and navigate the challenges brought about by the advent of the 4th Industrial Revolution. When zooming into this year's theme of this conference, which is decolonizing the 4th Industrial Revolution in support of the Sustainable Development Goals, it is a clear vision, Program Director, that the call is for us to use technological advancement presented by the 4th Industrial Revolution to achieve the 2030 goals of meeting the targets as set for the Sustainable Development Goals, which among others include issues like gender equity, clean water, sanitation, industry innovation, infrastructure, and quality education. The 4th Industrial Revolution presents to all of us a set of challenges that educators need to address. For the education sector, educators need to ensure that they are delivering a relevant education to today's students. This basically means within the education sector, things will never be the same. We have to come up with different ways of teaching our learners. We need to train scholars to deal with challenges of the 21st century, some of which we may not have encountered yet, including artificial intelligence, the usage of big data, the mobile internet, cloud technology, robots in industry and at home, the Internet of Things, cars that drive themselves, lorries and taxis, drones, 3D printers, virtual reality, and machine learning. We need to work across different sectors to develop the technology required for us to shoot ahead across the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Program Director, This translates to ensuring that the school curriculum reflects the pace of the development of the huge range of technologies presented by the fourth industrial revolution, which is currently not part of the gradual technological trends that we have experienced in the past. Our educators actually have a responsibility to prepare our students, providing them not only with the knowledge and understanding of technologies, but also the skills to make the right career decision and thrive at work. In the current environment which we find ourselves, the educational tools, techniques, and curriculum that has been used for decades may no longer be fit for purpose. Students need to understand the technologies and the potential disruptions of future job markets and recruitment as well as work. In this era that we find ourselves in, the definition of illiterate will therefore change from those who cannot read or write to those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. This basically means with the challenges that are brought by fourth industrial revolution, we all need to have a responsibility to learn new things, unlearn, and relearn. Otherwise, technology will leave you behind. All sectors, therefore, need to work together. We are living in a connected society, with technology changing the world around us, making it smarter, more autonomous, and increasingly data-rich. This is the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution. And while many fear losing relevance in the fourth industrial revolution, the work of engineers will remain valuable. The research that has been done states that engineering workforce needs will be fundamentally changed by technology in the fourth industrial revolution. Old jobs will become redundant. New jobs will definitely be born. Cutting-edge tools will change work methods, and connected workforce will allow for vast collaboration. So as we embrace the challenges of industrial revolution or the fourth industrial revolution, there will always be a need for different stakeholders to collaborate so that we exchange our understanding of different technologies. With these new developments imminent, the engineers of today will need to start adapting, committing to continually learning and upskilling. And in fact, it is engineering that will drive many of the fourth industrial revolution pending advancement. So the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution, it brings challenges to basically all spheres of our lives, including engineering. So engineers as well, they will have no choice but to also adapt in terms of how they use technologies, as well as how they design whatever new designs that they come up with. Program Director, the skills needed to engage the fourth industrial revolution must be built on the skills needed to address our political, our social, our economic, as well as our ecological troubles of our countries and the continent at large. We need to heed words of one economist who once said, "You cannot wait until the house burns down to buy the fire insurance on it." It means you need to have insurance for this house before it burns. Those are the challenges that are brought about by the fourth industrial revolution. There are things that as individuals we need to do. As academia, as government, as the Engineering Council of South Africa, we all have a role to play to embrace the challenges brought about by the fourth industrial revolution. We cannot wait until there is a massive dislocation in our society to prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. The time is now. The previous speaker asked the question, when is this fourth industrial revolution coming? We've been talking about it for quite some time. The fourth industrial revolution's time is now. There's no need to wait any further. You need to do your part now. And to be part of the global technological revolution, you will, in so doing, be preparing our country to ensure that we are able to address and achieve the sustainable goals or sustainable development goals for the benefit of our people. Program Director, as I come to the end of my speech, I would like to make a call to all people in attendance in this conference that as we deliberate on the theme of this conference, we need to take cognizance of the importance of coming up with resolutions, and most importantly, action plans. Through these action plans, we are going to be able to articulate what it is that we are going to do as different stakeholders to respond to the challenges that are brought about by this industrial or fourth industrial revolution. Conferences like this will come and go, but for as long as there is no action plan out of these conferences, we will have one conference after the other without resolutions, without action plan, because these action plans are the ones that will gear all of us to respond positively to industrial revolution. Lastly, as the Engineering Council of South Africa, we have noted that we have a responsibility to engage quite a number of stakeholders. This includes the academia, because this is where students are taught. This includes government, because this is where legislation is made. And if legislation doesn't give us an opportunity to thrive and respond positively to the fourth industrial revolution, this dream will not come true. So engineering is always at the center of the fourth industrial revolution, and we are going to hold hands with all relevant stakeholders, be it government, public, academia, and all role players, so that collectively we can find a way to respond positively to the fourth industrial revolution. Having said that, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you, sir. You started your presentation with a quote from the president, and you also made an emphasis on how important it is to have our government behind us, to have our leaders taking this further. So I'm very, very fortunate to be able to introduce our leaders in telling this. I was just told that we will first give, or we will give the Premier, Professor Dr. Makoro, opportunity to speak first, or should I? So we'll have two people from government. The first will be the Director General for Science and Innovation, Dr. Phil Machara.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I know they are trying to get the presentation going, but I'll be able to speak without it, so it's fine. So I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Ndate Job Mohoro, the Premier of the Northwest Province. In the holding room, he reminded me and all of the others that we used to work together when he was asked to set up the National School of Government. So he was my counterpart as a Director General. So we're grateful, Premier, to have you here. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Professor Marilyn Setla-Lentroa, who is, I think, our hosts this morning. And then Christopher, who has just spoken from the Engineering Council. And then, of course, I'm grateful to both the two program directors, Cecil and Lizelle, representatives from SADC, High Commissioners and Embassies, Deans of Engineering, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank you for asking me to come and speak in this very important occasion, the UNESCO Africa Engineering Conference. I have to start by apologizing, Premier, because the invitation was for the Minister, who unfortunately could not join you this morning. And he has then asked me to be his spare wheel. So I'll do the best I can to stand in for him. I have 3 messages for you this morning, which I'll elaborate a bit more. The first one is the importance of engineering. The second one is I'll spend a few minutes just sharing with you what the department is investing or has invested in the 4th Industrial Revolution. And then I'll say a few words about the challenges that we are observing in engineering, both in South Africa and Southern Africa. But I do see Prof who has done the study, but I'll just introduce the study. So those are the 3 messages I will convey this morning. But there is a general agreement that many of the problems facing the world today are engineering challenges, such as upgrading the infrastructure, green innovations to reduce manufacturing's carbon footprint, viable alternative energy, the redesign of cities to make them smart cities, safeguarding against cyber attacks, and many, many, many others, such as climate change and so forth. In this context, we believe that engineering is becoming increasingly important for the development of innovative solutions to address humanity's most urgent challenges, and in particular those relating to the provision or access to new medical interventions, safe drinking water and sanitation facilities, sustainable energy generation technologies, and other public services. There is therefore no doubt that engineering is a key enabler for addressing some of humanity's most urgent challenges. The creation of wealth can also serve as a critical enabler for developing countries to benefit from the opportunities of the 4th Industrial Revolution. The presentation, unfortunately, that I cannot beam up at the moment, was going to share with you some case studies of the work that we have started to do in the 4th Industrial Revolution. But let me try and do that by just sharing with you 3 of these examples of the work that we're doing. In the agricultural sector, we're working with the private sector and the Agricultural Research Council and the Space Agency to do what we call smart agriculture. What we mean by this is that if you go to the experimental farm in Stellenbosch, you will see drones in this experimental farm collecting information about the crops that we are developing for areas that do not have a lot of water. So the drones collect information as to when you can put the fertilizer, and the satellite imagery that we take over a period of time allow us to get a sense of whether the crops will give us good yields or not good yields. So this, called smart agriculture, has now been piloted at the University of Stellenbosch, and we are now ready, and Premier, this is one of the initiatives that we would be happy to share with you, to roll them out into a number of provinces. So the program has been piloted, and you can see again that you're using different technologies, satellite technology, breeding technologies, as well as data to make sure that you have smart agriculture. The second example that I'd like to give, unfortunately we can't beam the picture here, is that at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, we've developed a complicated, and I saw Dr. Sandile Ngobo here, manufacturing to do what is called additive or 3D manufacturing. So using powder and laser, you can actually manufacture components without having to assemble different components. So this is called additive manufacturing, but I saw in the program, Lizelle, that you have quite a detailed set of presentations that would share what we have invested in additive manufacturing. The third example that I wanted to share with you is in the health area, where at the South African Medical Research Council, in Cape Town, we are trying to understand early enough the likely diseases that you would have because of the gene tree of your family, and then be able to use what we call precision medicine to do early detection of some of the diseases that you might have. And we are already working with the private sector to look at this mechanism of using precision medicine for early detection and targeted medicines for people with particular genetic disorders. And then the fourth example that I want to give you is not an example of something that we have started to do, but I thought, Premier, I would share this with the meeting because I've been very frustrated with having to go and renew my driver's license physically. And I've asked myself, as a DG of Science and Innovation, why is the country subjecting itself into this? Because when you go and renew your driver's license, there are three things that you are going to do there. The first one is you're going to have your fingers dirty with the fingerprint. The second one is you're going to have your eyes tested, and for us who are a little older, it's not a comfortable experience when you're asked to read the small font at the bottom. And then the third one is you're going to pay. And in most instances, they don't take credit cards. They expect you to pay by cash. Now, all of these things today don't need me to go there physically, because I can have my eyes tested today at an optometrist and then send a file through to the e-NATIS network. I can then pay through the EFT, and then the person at the back who's monitoring the files can then say, the eyes for Dr. Mjwaka have been tested, he has been paid. Then you can trigger the process to renew a license. The only time I go there is when I go and put my finger in a biometric system that shows my face and confirm my ID, and then I walk out. So we can process probably 3 times the number of people that we are processing using this 3D or this triangulation of the data. So again, the question was asked, where is the fourth industrial revolution? I'm saying it's here. These things can be done today, and we shouldn't be, I think, wasting a lot of time to implement these ideas. So now I want to move to the Africa's development challenges. As you are aware, in response to the Agenda 2063 and to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SADC countries have developed a number of action plans. One such plan is the SADC Industrialization Strategy 2015-2063. As you know, this strategy is anchored on 3 pillars: industrialization as a driver for economic growth, and technological transformation, competitiveness as an active process to move from comparative advantage to competitive advantage, and regional integration. The strategic goals embodied in this strategy include an increase in manufacturing and exports, a move to manufacturing more medium to high-tech products, and doubling industrial employment. We are of the view that these goals can only be achieved if we have the right numbers of engineers and we embrace the fourth industrial revolution. Of course, to achieve this strategy, policymakers have already identified the critical role that will be played by engineering. And to this end, the SADC Ministers of Science and Technology and Higher Education have endorsed an engineering numbers and needs study to get better understanding of the actual engineering capacity in the region and the needs for member states. As I say, I suspect that, Professor, you will give the details of the study at some point, but maybe let me give you the highlights of what came out of the study. The study notes that engineering professionals are key to many of these aspirations and are thus required to play a significant role in changing the fortunes of the SADC countries. The study investigated the demand for and supply of engineers, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians in both the public and private sectors. Considering the size of the current engineering workforce, projects planned, growth projections, and the flow of graduates from tertiary institutions, amongst others. All sectors requiring engineering capacity were investigated, and these included agriculture, construction, energy, water and gas, manufacturing, mining and transport, and communications. The findings of the study identified a number of problems, which include, of course, as we know, inadequate mathematics and science teaching at schools. So if we want to have the right numbers of engineers, we need to address this problem. Capacity, resourcing, and quality challenges in tertiary education. We have already done a study in South Africa, and I suspect ASAF will be presenting the results of the study of the challenges in engineering training in the tertiary institutions. Non-alignment of engineering qualifications, the lack of graduate appointments and training in industry, little recognition of the need to develop middle management, and limited investment by an engineering capacity in both the public and the private sector. The study was presented last year at the SADC Ministers of Higher Education and Science and Technology, and they've asked that further work be done to address these problems. So at the next meeting, if you do invite us to come and talk, we'll be able to share how the policymakers want to address some of these challenges. So in conclusion then, our commitment to invest in training of more engineers for SADC and Africa shouldn't be geared towards seeking to gain a better understanding of engineering numbers to determine whether there is adequate capacity for planning and in implementing infrastructure programs and for enhancing output and productivity in key sectors of the economy, but also to position the region and continent favorably for opportunities that are presented by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is for this reason that I'm also particularly pleased to hear that as part of this conference, you also have a program that involves high school learners from around the Mahikeng area. This is an important and commendable intervention on the part of organizers of this conference, because some of these Fourth Industrial Revolution engineering challenges will be by the young people that have to be trained today. I have no doubt that the outcome of this conference will bring us closer to our shared goal of building a more equal and humane world, and we wish you all the best for the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Minchwara. Please remember, my license is due to be renewed in 18 months. So if you can maybe get that project running, it will be great. I was also very pleased about the examples that you've given of multidisciplinary nature. And you will be pleased to also know that not only in terms of additive manufacturing, but also in terms of health, and even in terms of languages, there will be great presentations later today on how technology can really improve our lives. It's now my privilege to introduce to you our Premier of the Northwest Province, Professor Job Makgoro.
Thank you. Do I use this?
I think you can use this one.
Okay. So I give you back this one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. My voice is not the best one this morning. I had to work until late last night. Okay, are we fine? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Phil Njwaga, the spare wheel for the minister, otherwise DG of Science and Innovation, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Sitalintwa, Professor Lizel van Dijk, Professor Inoue Benso, all academics present here, ladies and gentlemen. We are indeed honored and humbled to be part of this conference, and we want to believe that its sole aim is to bring together all role players from various engineering fields and related disciplines to seek ways and means of addressing the engineering skills deficit in South Africa. Coming from the public sector, we certainly have a biased interest in this conference, and certainly will be watching developments with great interest. Ladies and gentlemen, the recent reports point to the fact that indeed our country is grappling with acute shortage of skills in various key and strategic economic sectors due to a growing and serious mismatch between the skills demanded by the economy and those, of course, that are supplied to the economy. Excuse me. The South African engineering sector is not immune to this. The entire globe is affected, but that does not mean we have to sit on our laurels and not do anything to address this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, according to MERSITA, which is the Manufacturing, Engineering and Related Services sector, the shortage of highly skilled individuals is one of the factors that have contributed to the slow adoption of technology, lower productivity, lower competitiveness, and high production costs in our country. Many of you will remember that when we had perhaps the best economic growth rates could have been somewhere in the 2005, Dr. Mzoga, where we grow up to 5%. What was very interesting in the debate there was that, yes, you have high levels of growth, but that the growth is not creating jobs. And the debate was very interesting, but in the midst of this debate, there was a view that took a position that it was really not because of skill shortage, or rather that the growth that we're experiencing was a jobless growth, but that what was happening was a skills and a supply and demand challenge. So that whereas the economy was growing and various categories that demanded, as part of this growth, demanded skills, the skills that were in demand by this growing economy were not the skills that were being supplied. So rather than that being a jobless growth, it was in fact a mismatch between demand and supply. But even today, with the low growth that we're experiencing, you would find that one of the factors that seriously are besetting us is the question of skills. And indeed, at various levels, one of the key drivers of poverty is a question of lack of skills. As a country, we have been found not to be training enough engineers, artisans, as well as technicians to deliver strategic infrastructure projects as envisaged in the National Development Plan, so as to give a much needed boost to our ailing economy. It is therefore very pleasing to see our government, jointly with the private sector, as well as institutions of higher learning and research, respond to the challenges facing the engineering sector through fora such as this conference. According to a report by the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa, for one, and I quote, "To understand the state of engineering profession in South Africa, it is important to consider the sectors in which engineers engage." The report stated that, in a broad sense, engineers are at the core of two areas of development in the country: building and maintaining infrastructure in the public sector and contributing towards economic growth in the private sector. These are fundamentally different contexts in terms of the kind of engineering work undertaken and the conditions of employment. It is common knowledge, therefore, that municipal engineers are responsible for the provision of roads, communication, bulk services, as well as electricity, civil engineers. These will be responsible for construction and upkeep of urban development, road infrastructure, while industrial engineers perform a wide range of functions in consulting firms, small commercial enterprises, or large multinational companies. I'm stating these examples to signify the important role that engineering and engineers play in our everyday lives, therefore making it a very important government responsibility to ensure that corporates and institutions of higher learning and research invest in the training and development of more engineers, artisans, and technicians to contribute towards acceleration of economic growth. It is therefore going to be very important as we go forward that the discussions here that will ensue throughout these 2 days should be able to take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution to unlock the challenges currently facing the economy in the general and engineering sector in particular. Your resolutions and decisions emanating from this conference should be those that are aimed solely at addressing the identified deficits in the engineering space that continue to be stumbling blocks to the growth of our economy. It's very interesting that as you hold this conference, there is a strike that is imminent. Hopefully the various parties will come to some agreement. I think the bad thing about with due respect to the rights of individuals as contained in the Constitution and elsewhere, but like every strike, the sad thing about it is that there are disagreements, there are warring factions, productivity is affected. But the positive side to this disagreement is the fact that maybe it is the first test of the fourth industrial revolution. Because from time to time, when speakers talk about the industrial revolution, one of the things that often comes up is the question of, given the challenges around jobs and unemployment, to what extent will the fourth industrial revolution impact on this? And so we have an interesting case study unfolding before us. So that I think it would be very interesting to watch the space. Now, conference delegates, the Northwest Provincial Government has recently taken initiative to resuscitate a memorandum of understanding with the Northwest University so that we can cooperate in various fields and disciplines, so that our common national interest can find prominence in this agreement. At a selfish level, we in the public sector are very much conscious of the fact that we operate in a highly VUCA world, a world that is volatile, as you know, a world that is fraught with uncertainties, a world that is fraught with complexities, and a world that is fraught with ambiguities. And that is the world that we operate in. It is a world that is different to the world that some of us have gotten accustomed to, a world that we've been accustomed to through mathematical linear models, make predictions about how the future is likely to be, a world where we have tended to assume predictability, where we have been able to make projections given a number crunching exercise. That kind of simplistic linear mathematical models clearly in the VUCA world in which you and I find ourselves does not really have much relevance, so to say. The fourth industrial revolution, the engineers in this conference, just following up on what Dr. Mudwaha said, we have to resolve energy crisis issues. We all know that all of us, whether we like it or not, are hanging around an institution called ESCOM. And we know that the slightest mistake, that you and I are doomed. The questions of infrastructure. If you look at this situation in local government, and in particular, the infrastructure situation, it is just mind-boggling how we're going to resolve that. Inter alia, the question of decaying infrastructure. The challenges of water and sanitation, certainly in our province, we are perhaps more seriously affected than various other provinces. We are a water-scarce country, as you know, and in particular, we're even a more serious water-scarce province. These are the issues that we have to resolve. Our source of water is from bulk, but another source, given where we are as a largely rural province, is from boreholing. But you and I may think that all we need is to have sufficient underground water so that we can, through boreholes, have access to this water. But then at the same time, there is a thing called climate change, where suddenly we realize as we draw on this water resource, the water table is getting lower and lower. And these are the challenges we face on a day-to-day basis. The question of data, of information, and related to that, cybersecurity, have suddenly become key priorities in our daily lives. The whole question of feedback mechanisms. We are aware that our people, and this is a good sign, our people are increasingly becoming aware of their rights as provided in the Constitution. And the more aware they are, the more assertive they are becoming. And the more assertive they become, the more impatient they are becoming with regard to those who are tasked with the delivery of these services. So a multitude of these challenges are also responding to the question posed by the Deputy VC, that it is here and now, the fourth industrial revolution. And perhaps to further illustrate the challenge, just out of the VUCA world, let me just zoom into the C within the VUCA. The complexities of the context in which we find ourselves, and that's the context that needs to be assisted through the fourth industrial revolution. We are a platinum-rich province, and indeed we, amongst others, what we're doing in latching onto and maximizing the richness of platinum. We're having a discussion earlier this morning before we came here. We're setting up our own Silicon Valley in the eastern part of the province, in a place called Mugwase. But in our Silicon Valley, which we call the Platinum Valley, we have a situation where we do not only rely on what we do in order to beneficiate platinum, but we also depend on the global appetite for platinum and the products of our beneficiation processes. So that, for instance, if you look at the notion, a type of complexity which is called dynamic complexity, where cause and effect are separate in time and space. You have a situation where, in terms of space, our ability to enhance development at our Platinum Valley is dependent on China's appetite or any other country's appetite for what we produce. So that our ability to perform is certainly not linked to the immediacy of our environment, but is linked to various far-flung areas in the global village. And so as we plan, as we analyze our data, we have to factor that into our analysis, into our planning, so that in this example of dynamic complexity, space becomes a key factor. But another aspect of dynamic complexity is the question of time. From time to time, when leaders in our country talk about why we have not been able to deliver on this or the other, they would say, well, it's a carryover from apartheid. And another opinion would be, say, but we've been around for 25 years. You cannot keep on blaming apartheid. The fact of the matter is, there is no way that the challenges of today can be completely separate and distinct from the origins of these challenges. And they can go so much back into history. In other words, what I and my colleagues have to do on a day-to-day basis, we have to factor into that what were the issues 10 years ago, what were the issues 20 years ago, how do we factor that into what we're doing. And when we factor those issues into what we're doing, it is not a matter of looking for excuses from the past, but recognizing that our meaningful analysis, in order to make any meaningful sense out of the analysis that we do, and therefore the delivery of services, we have to take into account questions of dynamic complexity, where cause and effect are separate in terms of time and space. Another variant of complexity is, of course, social complexity. Not so long ago, when our provincial government was placed under administration, the first department to go under the hammer was the Department of Health. I actually sat down and did some analysis as to what could be the causative factors. The truth of the matter is, in my analysis, where I was talking to myself, that was the only conference participant in that analysis, I came across, I listed 44 factors, 44 causative factors. And I was immediately reminded of what Minister Pravin Gordhan often said to us. join the dots. And I said to myself, supposing out of these 44 factors, I had listed 8 causative factors in order to enable me to come up with an appropriate intervention. 8 factors, and that's quite a lot. The reality is I would have missed out on 36 factors, and my intervention would therefore have been so meaningless. The point I'm making is that is the reality of the world of complexity. And so the type of complexity called social complexity is that all of us, this auditorium could be filled in every possible space. And when we come together and address a problem, a social problem, a problem such as #Fish Must Fall, all of us will offer our causative factors, our solutions. The reality of complexity in today's world is that everybody in this room would have been right. In other words, everybody's contribution would have to be taken into account. And so the world that we live in today, it is not a matter of saying, there are 500 of us here, we will prioritize the top 15 and intervene in respect of those top 15. The reality of the world says, if we are 500, we're going to listen to 500. And our intervention is going to be informed by the 500. If you look at #Fish Must Fall, you find a process that is moving towards resolving the issue. You don't find an abrupt solution to a problem. So that engagement, continuous stakeholder engagement, continued analysis of gathering data and information around the complexity of stakeholders is the way to go. But then another type of complexity is what is called generative complexity, where we deal with issues, especially in social innovation. We deal with issues and challenges about which we have no knowledge, no idea of their causes, nor do we have an idea about the solutions we can offer. The reality of the world that we manage is that we have a combination of dynamic complexity, social complexity, and generative complexity, all overlapping. It is no simplistic world. And that is why you and I have got not only to welcome the 4th Industrial Revolution, but certainly ready ourselves for the 4th Industrial Revolution. And I'm just giving this example to give notice to the university with which we have just entered into a working partnership arrangement. We will not be parasitic about it, but our contribution will be the complexity and the intractability of the world in which not only do we manage, but we believe that all of us manage. So that, ladies and gentlemen, those would be my few thoughts about this very, very important conference. As I say, we certainly have an interest in the conference. Those of you who heard me give the State of the Province address on the 28th of June, we mentioned a number of programs and projects that we are committed to implementing. And one of the things that will make it easier for us to implement is precisely the outcome of your conference. I was sharing with Dr. Mzwaha that we're in discussions with the CSIR around finding ways and means of getting our challenges and problems simplified and resolved. The other day, about 2-3 weeks ago, we were with the Faculty of Engineering at the Posh campus, and also looking at various ways of collaboration with regard to our service delivery responsibilities. With those few observations, let me wish all of us well in this unfolding conference, and we look forward to advancing the levels of our human capability, our institutional capability, for it is only when we do that that our people's quality of life can be enhanced. Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor. I remember when we signed the Memorandum of Understanding, you said you actually would prefer signing Memorandum of Action, and I've heard action, action, action in the whole presentation you've given here. It's also resonating with the Engineering Council's presentation or plea of taking action. So I hope that this conference can lead to action. I'm going to allow 2 questions from the press before we end the session. So, Christopher will.
Very good morning to everyone in the building this morning. Premier of the Northwest Province, Ntate Mokhoro, Ntate Film Jwaga, the DG of the Department of Science and Innovation, Prof. Setlalentwa, our DVC for Community Engagement and Mahikeng Campus Operations, Ntate Christopher Tsatsabane from EXA, Prof. Ebenzo, the Executive Dean for the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences, academics and students here present, and all invited guests. Okay. Professor Liesel van Dijk, Ntate Masoka, for the splendid work that you're doing in directing the program. Thank you very much. My name is Christopher Motabogi. I'm a manager for corporate communication here at the Northwest University. I have been requested to facilitate a short Q&A session for members of the media. What we will do is that there's already a request, Premier as well as Ntate Mjwaga, for the SABC to do an interview outside just after we finish the session. However, we thought for the benefit of other members of the media, we could allow for a few questions. And the arrangements will be as follows. We will take 2 rounds of questions. Please, we will really appreciate it if members of the media can introduce themselves so that we can know from which media house they are. And we would also like to request them, in the interest of time, to just keep their questions very short. And I think we can continue just by a show of hands. If there are any questions from members of the media, please introduce yourself and keep it very short. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brakris. My name is Tepiso Bosman from Northwest University, from the campus right here in Mafikeng. I just have one question to the Premier of the Northwest. I've heard you spoke about action. We have seen since Monday and Tuesday, learners from high school. Just want to check with the provincial government, what are the plans that are there to assist those learners? They have done coding. Is there funding for them to further their studies if they want to do coding at the higher institutions of learning? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Freelance journalist. Since the conference is in 6th year, I need to kind of understand what are the challenges or the achievement And then one speaker actually said due to this industrial revolution, certain jobs will be redundant, if not all works. But it's not clear how these new jobs, which will be reborn, kind of compensate the redundant jobs that are said to be maybe dysfunctional.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think we'll take one more question before we allow the Premier to respond. Do we have anyone who would like to ask a question? Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. This is Mr. Isaac Kabadira from Tshwane University of Technology. I made a presentation yesterday about the kind of research that we're doing at TUT. My first question is to Dr. Mjwaha. The engineering needs numbers study, where can we find it? Is it online? If you could kindly inform us where we could find it. The second one is to, again, Dr. Mjwaha with the Premier. If you look at the Northwest Province, it's got almost 4 million people according to the latest study. And South Africa has got a population of almost 58 million. How many universities are there in Northwest that are producing engineering qualifications? And my plea to you is that the Northwest University does provide engineering qualifications at the other campus. My plea is that can we have engineering qualifications also on this campus, please?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll allow the Premier as well as the DG to respond.
Thanks very much. So we've agreed with the Premier that I will start first, and then he will wrap up. Let me start with the engineering needs and numbers. There are a couple of people from the Department of Science and Innovation. I think it is on our website, website for the Department of Science and Innovation, www.dsi.gov. But Professor Alison Lawless is here as well, who actually did the study. So you can engage with her during the coffee break, and probably going to be here till tomorrow. So she will probably even share with you the insights of the study. And then let me try the question on jobs. There have been studies that have been made, but they have been done in the developed world that show that between 15 and 20% of the current jobs would be lost as a result of the fourth industrial revolution. No study has been done for the developing countries, and in particular in South Africa. So what we are doing in the Department of Science and Innovation is we have asked the Human Sciences Research Council to look at the impact at the jobs level for the fourth industrial revolution. So we don't have the numbers, we're just speculating at this point in time. However, perhaps by the next meeting we will have a sense of this, because you can't just thumb suck. You need to really go through each and every sector and look at this point in time, what is predicted in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, and go to the detail. I also know that there's a study that was done by Accenture, if I'm not mistaken. So there are some of these studies, but I don't think they are South African specific, and they're not even provincial specific, but we'll be more than happy to extend the studies to look at the impact. And then I would like to add, after the Premier has responded to the coding jobs or adversaries, that we do have a postgraduate program for training people who have an interest in data analytics. So when they have completed their undergraduate, which hopefully they will have completed, please come and talk to us, and we'll be more than happy to share with you some of the programs. The programs are at 2 levels. The one program is just to train people who have just completed their undergraduate studies. It's a program which we are having at the CSIR, which is called Data Science for Impact and Decision Enablement. It's a private-public initiative where a number of private sector institutions and the research institution at the CSIR are solving problem of the industry using just collecting data, analyzing data, and giving a person with a basic, I'm afraid, science degree how you can analyze this data for the solutions. And then there's a high-end master's program which allows people now who have statistics, who have computer science at a master's and a postgraduate level to have higher level skills for analyzing data, both for the academic programs but also for industrial programs. So I hope I've been able to. Now, there's one more quickly. The challenges, I think, Prof, you were very articulate in terms of the challenges in engineering. We have fewer engineers than the demand. In certain instances, we find that after the engineers have been trained, they don't have sufficient experience to exercise their trade in the engineering programs. And one of the ideas, I think, at government that we are exploring, as we procure infrastructure, or whether we're procuring trains or building bridges, we're looking at a program. I think we've started this conversation with EXA around how absorbing those engineers into the public procurement programs where these engineers can have workplace experience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DG. I think by and large you've really answered the questions that I'm expected to answer. But suffice to say, if you look to your right, the fourth person is my Chief of Staff, Tato Mahokodi. Just pursue your inquiry further. We have a budgetary system. What we have done is we have looked at the economic needs of the province and said we will prioritize studies in the following fields. But that notwithstanding, I would encourage you to talk to Mr. Tato Mahokodi and let's see if supply and demand can meet. The second question, Alison, are you able to answer that question? And good to see you. Oh, sorry, it's a program director here down. I'm behaving as if I'm in my territory in government. My apologies. I think Dr. Zoha has answered that question about and the Deputy Vice Chancellor should also be able to answer that question. As stakeholders who will join it in really pleading with the university that your sentiments should find place at the university. Certainly good thinking. So I think let's together pursue that.
Premier, I think Prof. Liesel van Dijk would also like to respond to that very
Prof. van Dijk.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking that question and for supporting our case and for supporting the work that we are doing. Because actually we are working on putting a program on this campus. It takes time. Any one of you have worked through the HET processes to get programs on the table will realize that. But we are going to have a 3-year engineering sciences degree on this campus, which is very feasible because we are one university with 3 campuses. There's full alignment between existing programs. So maths and science and chemistry, which are part of the first year of engineering, are anyway presented at this campus. And then we will build on that to have a 3-year engineering sciences degree, which can either be taken further into the job place, or it can articulate with our bachelor's of engineering degree. So it's not a question of why not, it's happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Prof. van Dijk. Colleagues, we are running out of time. I know I promised to take another round of questions. If we don't have any questions, I think maybe at this time I see a few hands. Remember, colleagues, this session was actually specifically meant for members of the media. So if you're not from the media fraternity, could you please take the questions offline in the upcoming sessions? Thank you very much. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you. So that then concludes our session. So as you've heard, there's other engagements for the Premier and the team. So I'm going to ask you to stand again as the Premier exit, and then also invite you for coffee and tea, and we will get together again at 11:30. No, in half an hour. What's the time now? Sorry, Christopher, what's the time now? Sorry? 10. So we will get together in half an hour. There's a request that you just make sure that you sign the attendance register. It's important for the officers. So please make sure that you send the. Okay, and then the photo.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Colleagues, my name is Enoe Benso. I'm in charge of this session. This session is titled National Development Goals as it relates to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Before we start, I just want to say that in the program, you will see there were 4 people initially in the program. The first 2 are unavoidably absent. So, so we have replaced these 2 people. You have Mr. Joseph Ndaba, who is going to start first, followed by Professor Beatrice Lackett. Then, in our list, we have Aaron and Dr. Siddiq Mutala. So we still have 4 people who are going to present, but the first 2 are absent. I just want to update you on the information. So colleagues, it's already 11:30, so we want to quickly just start the session on national development goals as it relates to Fourth Industrial Revolution. You are all aware that Fourth Industrial Revolution is the buzzword in the country now, and there seem to be a lot of people that are interested in it. I won't say people. I think the whole country is interested in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And in the Presidential Advisory Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, certain research questions were put forward as terms of reference. 1, how should South Africa characterize the Fourth Industrial Revolution in regards to its social and economic aspirations and priorities? What is South Africa's state of readiness towards the Fourth Industrial Revolution? What are South Africa's unique competitive advantages, local and international, in these areas? Development on Internet of Things, genetics, artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, 3D printing, and biotechnology. What will be the impact of 4IR on government, business, and society as a whole? What are the opportunities and threats presented by the 4IR? Does South Africa have unique, adequate skills for 4IR? If so, in which areas? Where are the gaps, as well as the skills that will be required going forward? How do we prepare the workforce for multiple career changes that cut across occupational boundaries? What are South Africa's research and development capabilities to support 4IR? What technologies should be manufactured locally to grow ICT and related 4IR industries? There are quite a lot of research questions that came out from the terms of reference of the Presidential Advisory Commission on 4IR. And I think this session is going to deal with that. And our first speaker today is Joseph Ndaba. He's going to talk on 4IR as a vehicle to advance underdeveloped provinces. Let me quickly introduce Joseph to you. Or is it necessary? Because you have it already in your program. Before Joseph comes to the podium, you have 30 minutes to do your presentation, not 20 minutes, so don't be scared. You have 30 minutes, and then when it's just 5 minutes to the time, you will see a sign that shows it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes to the time. Then I think we will give just opportunity for 3 questions, then we call the next speaker. So colleagues, I invite Joseph Ndaba to do his presentation. Thank you.
What time is it? 11, 40, okay. I wanted to check if I was still a good morning or a good day or good afternoon and all those type of things. Okay, Dumela. That's a nice way of doing it. Dumela. Lekai. We are here as well. Okay, like I was introduced, do you remember the president in his SONA announced that he needs to appoint the commissioners to be able to assist this country in terms of responding to the fourth industrial revolution. Everybody has been saying, 4IR this, 4IR that, but what exactly is this 4IR? So the president saw the need to say, let me appoint about 30 commissioners so as they can be able to advise him in terms of how this country should be marched within the fourth industrial revolution. So when I got the request to come speak, I was looking to say, do we speak in South Africa context? Do we speak in the world context? Or do we bring it home? And I decided to say, you know what, let's bring this home so as we can see how best we can be able to develop this province. And then you had the premier said, that we need your skills right now to be able to develop this province. So now this is the right time for us to be able to host this conference so as we can see the outcomes of this province on how best we can be able to position them to assist this province. Now, they say the Industrial Revolution is defined as a change in manufacturing and transportation that began with fewer things being done by hands. But now we've moved from there, we introduce automations, we introduce technologies. Now, we sit down as the commission and say, then how do we bring this definition back home for us to be able to understand it better? And we decided that we're going to position it as the 4IR is an era where we are using smart, connected, and converged cyber physical system and smart business model. Why do we need to do this? Simply because we need to redefine and reshape the digital and physical and biological spheres so as we can be able to improve the quality of life, so as we can be able to create a sustainable environment, so as all of us can be able to make wealth out of it. So this is how we are positioning it in South African context. We understand that the wealth has its own context of positioning the 4IR, but we thought, let's bring it back home to see how best it can be able to suit us. Now, who exactly are we planning for? And what exactly are we planning for? Because you know that if ever you start planning, you need to understand that who exactly are you planning for? We cannot just plan. Like right now in this lecture hall, you can see that we have about 5 generations sitting here right now. And then all of us, we are in a way that occupying the same space. Then how do we then address these 5 generations? How then do we come and say, boomers, this is how 4IR is going to affect you. You as millennials, this is how 4IR is going to affect you. So all this generation, we need to be talking to them to say, what are these advantages? What is this big monster that we call 4IR? And then, unfortunately, we cannot be able to also leave the traditionalists outside. I know it's difficult for them to comprehend this. It has been done like this, we're not going to change it. You can tell why other things like municipalities are not functioning because of that mentality to say, it has been done like this, we are not going to change it. So 4IR, unfortunately, it comes and it affects each and every sector and each and everybody to say, you need now to step out of your comfort zone to say, we need to take this and then start developing new ideas. Yeah. One journalist asked here about jobs. And then I heard that the gentleman couldn't be able to articulate that answer quite well because he is right. We are still looking into the fact that what jobs are going to be lost, and then what new jobs are going to be created. And then you can tell right now that we have opportunities, and then we also have disadvantages of this 4IR. But what I would like to say to you is, like, let's not look much into the negativity of 4IR. Rather, let's look how best we can be able to create new opportunities through the fourth industrial revolution. Instead of looking at we are going to lose jobs, we need to be looking at which new skills do we need to create new jobs. We need now to start looking which new business pipelines we need to start creating. I was having a meeting with the Department of Agriculture, and I said, on your next funding window, you need now to start including technologies. When for young farmers are applying for this fund, they also need to include technologies within their proposals. As we heard, we are going to smart farming. So if your application doesn't include smart farming, then how are you then going to assist us to move the province forward? That's one of the things that we need to be looking at. And also the Premier mentions about the banks. We know that they're about to go on strike. We know why. We have digital banks taking over the space right now. All our traditional banks, now they are busy retrenching because some of them, they didn't prepare for this wave. So all these new digital banks, they are taking over. Now, that is why we are sitting where we are sitting right now. Now, it's upon us to say, how do we reskill the people that has been in the industry? But we also have opportunities as we can tell. Because hence I was saying to you, we need to look more on these opportunities as opposed to the negativities that 4IR it is coming up with. Because right now, the only thing that you are thinking of, we are going to lose jobs. But 4IR is coming with ample opportunities, but you are not even looking at that. So it is time for us now to reshape our thinking to say, for us to be able to move the province forward, to move the municipalities forward, how then do we start consuming all this information and taking this data and change it and then be able to use it effectively? This is where the province is. We are one of the biggest provinces in the country right now. And then we are one of the biggest provinces with a lot of unemployment. Do you know the current state that you are sitting with? Who knows? The current state that you are sitting with of unemployment in this province. Who knows? That is your task to go look. Because this province is one of the highest in terms of unemployment, especially amongst the youth. So now, in that case, we are looking at what are the ways that we can be able to take these young people and then start reskilling them so as we can start moving this province forward. One gentleman also asked about the coding that we facilitated 2 days back. And luckily, we are working on Coding and Robotics Academy that we are going to launch in the province to be able to assist those students who need to get into this coding era, so as they can be able to have a platform where they can go for them to be able to learn more about coding. For us to be able to develop Northwest Province, we have decided to look at this approach. We need to start looking and putting a lot of funds in terms of research, technology, and innovation. Because without the research, technology, and innovation, we are not going to go forward as the province. So this is one of the things that you are looking at to say we need more people that can be able to give us research. We need more innovators that can be able to come with innovations that the government can be able to take so as they can come up with ideas for us to be able to implement. We're also looking at economy and social impact to say, how is 4IR going to impact the economy? That is again where job losses is coming in. How then the province is the province ready enough to come up with new initiatives so as we can be able to build this province? Now, we looked at the province as a whole to say, for us to be able to take advantage of 4IR, what is that which we have as the province? Some of us might know, some of us we might not know. When you move from Lichtenberg going down, we have silica. And you know that we need silica to be able to create the chips. That is why right now, America is fighting with China because of that. And the province is sitting with that right now. We can be able to take the advantage of that and be able to create those chips that will be able to power all these 4IR machines, to be able to power the laptop that you are using right now. So the province right now, it is sitting with that. It is the matter of getting the right skill for us to be able to start that process. So those are some of the things that we are looking at. Those are some of the advantages that the province is sitting with so as we can be able to move this province forward in terms of 4IR. We also looked at industrialization and commercialization. The province doesn't have much of industries. So there's another opportunity that we are sitting with to say then, which industries can we be able to create within the province? You see, and then in this case now, we look not only in mining, but we now start to think of new business opportunities that we can be able to create in terms of industrialization and commercialization. We also looked at the human capital and future of work. A lot of people spoke about the future of work, the skills. Now, we looked at to say, for us to move the province forward, we need now to look at what are the new skills that we need as the province. And luckily, the Premier answered that question to say they are still looking at this skills gap that we are sitting within the province. So the province needs to now look deeply to say, which skills do we need within the province so as we can be able to change this province? And then the policies as well and the legislation. We're sitting with SIDA. We're asking SIDA, what is that which you are doing in the province in terms of helping entrepreneurs? Because a lot of entrepreneurs are crying about the legislation, the red tapes. When you go to economic development, there is so much thing that is needed for them to be able to fund you. So we are re-looking at all these policies and the legislation that will be able to open doors for entrepreneurs. Because for us to be able to move the province forward, then we need innovators that can be able to come up with innovations. But it is useless for us to innovate if there is no procurement plan to procure these innovations. So those are some of the things that you are looking at. And we are coming again saying, what is the infrastructure that we are looking for? What are the resources that we have in the province? And then the good thing is, we are sitting with CSIR, like the Premier said, in terms of how then do we create an enabling environment and create an infrastructure so as innovators can have a platform for them to be able to innovate better. You know that we have this problem in the province, isn't it? Every corner of the province where you go, you have potholes. And then there's a lot of money that has been put for the project, but you don't ever get to understand what is happening. So we are looking at how then we can be able to monitor these things. If ever you are getting, sorry to tenderpreneurs, if you are getting a tender, are you, yeah, I see a lot of them are smiling. When you get this tender, is there any monitoring to say you did what you were supposed to do? You see? So now, in this case, for us to be able to monitor things like this, then we are coming and say, we need now to come and introduce a provincial rapid digitalization platform. In terms of municipalities, we need now to start using the data that we have within municipalities so as we can now have solutions that we need. Because you understand that our municipalities are going down every day. So 4IR, it can be an answer to the problem that we are sitting with within the municipalities. Because if ever we are going to use the data that we have, we can be able to create solutions for these municipalities. We look especially at artificial intelligence. How do we use AI to assist municipalities? So these are some of the things that you are looking at to say, this is what we need to be able to move this province forward. But the question still stands, do we have the right scale? Of all these things that we are planning so as to move this province forward, do we have the right scale within this province? Are the universities producing the right graduates for them to be able to move the province forward? Is our education system empowering the young ones so as they can now start thinking critically? That is some of the questions that we need to be answering. These are the skills that you are looking at. And you can see that at the center of this scale, we are sitting with entrepreneurs. So this is some of the skills that we've identified to say, and as you can see, engineering, it is one of those skills. These are the skills that we've identified. So as the province, these are the skills that we need to be able to move this province forward. So if you fall under this scale, you are lucky. But if you are not, you are still okay. Because we still need you. You know that, right? We still need you, period. Because we can not only focus on technology, we also need these soft skills to be able to make 4IR work. So this is what we are looking at, because we have realized that this province doesn't have much skill that we need to be able to move 4IR forward within the province. So now it is upon the universities to be able now to start re-looking at how we can be able to adopt these new qualifications so as our graduates, when they come out from these universities, they are able to deliver. And the good thing about 4IR, it doesn't wait for you to get a degree. You can still do whatever that you want to do while you're busy studying. Now, for this province to move, we have identified that these are the strategic focus areas. We need to relook at economic development. That's the first thing that we need to be looking at. To say, as economic development, are you ready for the 4IR? Do you have plans in place for you to be able to adopt the new business pipelines? So that's the first thing that you're looking at. We're also looking at health. You know the state of our hospitals in this province, isn't it? But again, we're also looking at it to say that in terms of health promotion, you know, your e-health, how we can be able to better our health in the province through introducing technologies within the health sector. We are also looking at education. That is a very worrying part within this university. Sorry, not the university, the province as a whole. I did some rounds within different institutions within the province to look and then talk to the students in terms of 4IR. And you'll be surprised that a lot of them, they don't even understand that there's something called 4IR. So if ever you are talking to a computer science student sitting in one of the TVETs and they don't understand this thing called 4IR, that is a worrying factor. I also went to UNISA, you know, to engage with the students from UNISA. And you can tell that we are still lagging behind in terms of understanding exactly the impact of 4IR. And some people say, but 4IR, it is not for us. It is for other countries, not for us. But unfortunately, 4IR, it is here. So our education needs now to change. We don't have a choice, unfortunately. You see, we are looking at connectivity. We can't talk the fourth industrial revolution without connectivity. Right now you're talking about 5G. You're talking about spectrum. We cannot be able to move forward if we are not connected as the province. I'm glad Prof. Aaron is here. He'll maybe be able to tell us in terms of the study which we did in terms of how we can connect this province. And then I'm happy that the Premier, it is open to that to say, let's work together to be able to connect this province. As you know, Dr. KK is already connected, so other districts will be connected as time goes by as well. And then you are looking at your environment as well, we are looking at the social empowerment, and we are looking at intelligent, customized citizen services provided by government, and mostly by the municipalities. So these are some of the key focus areas. We are introducing what you call the smart, localized, transformed sector of our economy. We are also looking at establishing the 4IR advisory team in the province. So don't be surprised when I call you to say, can you please come and join this team? Because we need the team that will be able to advise the Premier in terms of matching the province into the 4IR. We are looking at establishing the innovation hub. The Premier also mentioned that we are working with CSIR to be able to establish the innovation hub. We are looking at implementing new business pipelines with EED. We're also looking at having different open activities to be able to start promoting the fourth industrial revolution. So there's a couple of things that we are doing to make sure that we position this province so as they can start adopting these 4IR technologies. The burning issue, job creation. How then do we create jobs? In here, we just mentioned very few, especially looking at the tech-based industry, because this province doesn't have much ICT companies. So we just looked at some of the things that we can be able to do in terms of creating jobs within this province. I'm glad that the PDP, it will be coming out very soon, which is your Provincial Development Plan. And on that PDP, we are called to come and say, then what is your input in terms of the 4IR, in terms of ICT? Because the previous PDPs, they were not addressing these technologies. So the current PDP that is being developed, it now addresses all these challenges that you are sitting with. So it will give us a good picture as the province to say, this is where you need to be going. This is what you need to be investing money in. I'm not going to get much into this because I'm told that I have 2 minutes left. Now, this is what we came up with to say, this is how you can be able to leverage the digital economy and then start creating 4IR initiatives. And then the first one, it is the skill. We need to start training, especially the young people, in terms of data science, in terms of 3D printing, artificial intelligence, robotics, drone piloting. We need to start looking at those things. Our province is an agricultural province. We need to start implementing smart agriculture. And for us to do that, we will need people who understand how to pilot these drones. So that is a new skill that we need in the province. And if we have that, then it will be easy for us to be able to run with your smart farms. Again, some of the things that we are looking at is the collaborations between the hubs, the government, and the universities and the TVETs in terms of the new skills. What skills do we need? I was talking to one college in industrial site. It offers engineering courses. To say we need to start hosting hackathons in engineering. So as these guys can start developing innovations that are in line with engineering. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to be doing, we need to focus on the user. This thing, it is not for me, it's not for you, it is for everybody. And the drivers of this, they need now to start focusing on what? On who is using this 4IR technologies. Because I can tell you right now, we are busy with a system that is going to help the municipalities to be able to track Everybody that is doing fraud, don't tell them. Don't tell them. Yeah. Because we understand what is happening with fraud and corruption in this province. So we are busy trying to use AI to make sure that we develop solutions that will be able to assist municipalities in terms of this corruption. That is why I'm saying, at the end of the day, the focus must be on the user. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for your presentation. Colleagues, I said we'll give opportunity for just 3 questions. Yes? Okay, go ahead. Slide.
Instead of putting IR or industry at the time, they sent their people outside to where industry was from, for them to steal the skills, to buy small, to buy, you take your people outside. But what our approach here is a real fear for me, because it's a fear for me. We are saying, you want to jump, you are left behind in terms of digital divide. We are far behind. And when we are still living in our backward, we want to take a long jump into the fire. I'm not anti-fire, I'm not going to escape it. My kids won't escape it. But the presentation here is that we must jump. And once we jump, we are ready to fall into the pit. How do we mitigate against falling into the pit? What I'm telling you is going to happen. If you look at, am I talking of?
Try to make.
I know, okay, maybe I'm kidding, but there are other presentations.
Try to make it smart.
It is already, I'm saying, my advice is this.
Okay.
Small is beautiful. This is long jump. If it is 1.7, it's a record breaking long jump. Why can't we allow those who are learning to go 1.2, the exercise 1.2, exercise 1.2? Because in the skills that we're talking about there, we know our education. Our skills are knowledge skills. They're not applied skills. And what that's what we call for IR. And I'm thinking dissecting it really, there's a lot of competition. But it does not mean necessarily only knowledge skills that we call. Knowledge skills. It also applied innovation. And unfortunately, as I sit down, most of us become the best scientists. Most of us who are best scientists in the country today, we are knowledge. So please mitigate. Come up with something there. The plan is good about and strategy. But I want to know, I want to suggest that as we do it, let us try to mitigate again. You know the difference of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take the second question or comment. Yes?
My question is all my these cameras can't pick this up.
Okay, my name is Karabo Rapefo. I'm also a professional engineer. So I had a presentation yesterday where I did presentation about the smart grid. So I just want to find out, because that's the challenge that I had on education. How do you go about it? Because now we have a problem where now we still teach our primary schools or our middle or low school, not higher education. We are still teaching kids to memorize things, which is something that will actually not need in the future because we'll have robots to do such. Now, how do you go about educating people to change the education system, which is teaching people things which are not preparing them for this 4IR, and the communities as well, because now for them to accept this technology that we are talking about, they need to know, they need to understand it, because right now we have a situation in some areas where people are not accepting the smart meters because they think it's just a trap. So how do you educate the community as well as the kids?
Okay, thank you very much. The last one. Oh, yeah. Please make your question short and smart.
Thank you for the presentation, Dab. I just want to find out, now that we're talking about all this digitalization, I think there are ideas that are scattered all over the place. Is there a repository where people can, now that it is about digitization, come and deposit the ideas digitally without the risk of them being stolen? Because at the end of the day, I mean, we can sit at the commission and look nice, but if there's no place where contributors who have contributions to make can make those contributions in a safe way, then we can continue talking, but nothing will happen.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we are slightly behind time. That's why I said if you ask just 3 questions. I'm sorry about that. Joseph, can you attempt to answer those?
Let me be smart. Okay, I agree with you. You see, we cannot be able to jump from, so because some people say we are on the second revolution as the country. You see, some we are saying no, we are still on the first revolution. Now, that is why you see us having to do programs, especially like your open form coding that we were doing with those kids, to say no, we need to start now introducing, especially at the young age, you see, to start introducing these guys to come and say, this is the program that you have, so as we can address also your issue that you are sitting with. You see that? Because most definitely we cannot just jump from 1 to 4. No, we can't. Most definitely. Hence, I believe that the president saw the need for this commission to say, let's build this thing block by block. And hence, we are discussing to say at the commission, what exactly is that which we need to be focusing on as the country? You see that? Because we cannot take everything at once. You see? So, when we issue the blueprint of the strategy, you will see that which position that we are sitting with in the country, and then where are we starting as a country, you see. And then in terms of education, you are most definitely right, because I remember I said with the MEC of Education to say, how do we address this issue? And unfortunately, the department was not yet ready for this. In terms of, you remember Minister Angie Mutsega to say, we need to roll out robotics and coding to all the students, and we said, no, that's not the right way to do it. It's not like all of us, we need to be coders. All of us, no, that's not the right way to do it. Let's identify those codes that works with STEM. That is where we need to start, you see. And even with communities, I understand it's quite difficult, especially to the people who says, we've been doing it like this, you see. Hence now the connectivity comes in to say the more now they start being connected, it is the more they will be open to all these new changes. Because right now you're just coming with a smart meter. They see danger when they look at that. But the more they have access, it is the more now they'll start learning about these new things. And then when you come introduce these technologies, they will be able to adapt them very easily. I'm glad now because we are focusing on your kids' hackathons as well. We are boarding these guys for the kids' hackathon to say, let's take these young kids, let's run these hackathons for them. Let them start developing innovations. You know, we need them to start building things. So not to stand and do theoretical presentation, but to start building things. If things goes right, we'll be opening a digital hub here at Daletso very soon. So as we can take now the community to say, here's a digital hub. It is open to the community for them to come and learn about these technologies. And then the last one, right? The repository. Yeah, that is one thing that we spoke about. And then what you mentioned in terms of people not stealing the ideas, it is still one of the challenges that we are sitting with, you see. And when I was having a sit down with Jito in the province, it's like, Jito, now you need to start giving us a platform in the province for all these people to be able to dump all these innovations. And then we need to be sure that none of the departments will be able to steal these innovations. You see, the sad part about innovation is you might think about it now, only to find that a second after the another person is thinking about the same thing. You see, so but we are working on that repository as a province to make sure that we have that. And the good thing is we are having what you call the stakeholder engagement within the commission, the Provincial Commission. I'll be happy to invite you to come to that engagement so as you can also engage with our work stream of science, technology, and innovation to say, this is what I have, this is what I can be able to contribute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. Colleagues, if you have further questions or comments, you can engage Joseph after this presentation. Our next speaker is Professor Beatrice Lake. She's of the Academy of Science of South Africa. She's going to talk on the status of postgraduate research training in engineering in South Africa, a consensus study. I don't think Professor Beatrice dossier or profile is in your program. So I will just quickly read a few lines about Professor Beatrice. Professor Beatrice joined the University of Witwatersrand in 2003 as Professor of Electronics in the School of Electrical and Information Engineering. Her research interests include fields of photovoltaic conversion devices, having made the first ones in South Africa in late 1970, optical communication sensors and actuators, including biomedical and environmental applications, etc. She's widely published with more than 200 journal papers and jointly holds few patents. She's a fellow and was an ESCO member of South African Academy for Engineering, a fellow of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineering, a member of INCOSE. She's also a senior member of IEEE. She's a registered professional engineer, was a member of Council of EXA and various EXA committees for more than a decade until the end of 2016. She serves on numerous boards and committees and is director of WITS Commercial Enterprises. I welcome Professor Beatrice Lake.
Thank you, Chair. I'm being wired. This is not quite for IR. I saw a television ad the other day about a set of window washers where the person didn't want to pay, but they took out a little automated machine that you can swipe your card. And I think that is a good start for IR in people starting to use technology to still do their own thing. And the last comment is coding will become like a language. All of us will have to code, no matter what we do. So young kids of a few years old can already do that in a very simple way. And as you grow up, we must make sure that we can all code because everything will run around that. I'm not here to represent my own work today. I've been asked by the Academy of Science of South Africa to present the report that they created in the last few years about postgraduate research training in engineering. This is a good news story, but it has a health warning. And the health warning is about that we are very skinny. So we have to fatten up in this space. The work that we had to do was to conduct a study of the status of postgraduate research and training and education in engineering in South Africa. We did not have a full view of what is actually happening around the country. So someone had to get the data together and then put this all into one report, and especially where someone said your economic growth is dependent on the number of PhDs you've got per million of people, which is also a debatable statement. that we will find out how we are standing in that league. And then there may be some systemic challenges or shortcomings that make that we are not quite where some people think we are supposed to be. The study was done by quite a number of people, and they've just been listed here by name. And of course, there were a lot of people outside that were also participating in collecting the data. So the key chapters of this report, and I will give you the link of the report after this talk, and there are also hard copies of the talk of this report available at the stand of the DSI and ASAF. So we'll give you some background. What is the landscape of the postgraduate engineering education in South Africa? Where does it happen? What is the gender dimension of this? And I think myself and Alison is not quite representative of that big gap. There are many, we need many more people. The employability and the demand for postgraduate engineering graduates, which is always a problem, so where on earth do they then go once they've done all this hard work? How do we compare internationally? And then the report ends up with a number of recommendations. The way in which the information was gathered was through reviewing existing literature. There were some panel members and staff who conducted investigations. We did surveys and questionnaires, review existing databases around the country, held meetings and workshops with open workshops with the public, and a lot of industry partners in advance, and then also other outside parties who commented on what we put together. So I'm not going to go into deep discussion about where we are in this country at the moment. I'll highlight a few. I think the discussions in Rwanda's conference will take care of most of the arguments that one can make. South Africa is a very young and growing population. So it tells us something about numbers, and we'll get to the numbers later and see that we're a little bit in trouble. Our industry sector, they used to be quite high-tech, and then we lost a lot of that over time. We're now producing mainly low and medium technology products, and less and less and less of that as we, in a way, get not decolonized, but we get recolonized in many ways. We've got a respected tertiary education system, which is a good point. We have a government supporting science and technology, and we know that we need to grow our economy and to become internationally competitive so that we can sell whatever we are making. And to do that, to become competitive, we need appropriate skills, and we need very strong integrated and practical infrastructure. The quality and the availability of these highly skilled workers or people around the country, they're not all workers, is critical for our shift to go into the new age where we're going to use technology more to the benefit of whatever we are doing in this country. And I've got a strong view on this. We will move the whole country towards a new technologically supported environment, but not everybody is going to work to get it there. So there's different sets of people going to be involved. And immediately, we have to use our technology and our new sets of skills and people who can use the technology in a wise way in solving problems around water, renewable energy, how do we build smart cities, how do we create technology for infrastructure development that's suitable for our environment, a lot about systems engineering. Can we contribute to making digital movies with animation and gaming? We've got big data questions, especially if we talk about NHI and many other projects. And then how do we manage what we have? And the last one I put on there is a .x. That X can be 4, 5, 6, no matter what. We will all use that in times to come. The research capabilities that our country has, we've got well-respected academic and public research institutions, as said before, and many of them are internationally working together with people outside of our country. And if you look at the research publications that come out, a lot of them have significant impact on the scientific world and the engineering world. The drawback here is maybe we're becoming more efficient. I'm not sure which side of that coin I would sit. We've got a declining contribution in terms of research funding for a lot of the effort that universities and other areas are doing. And our current spending on R&D is the lowest of all the BRICS countries. And what we're doing is we are very inward-looking instead of reaching out and trying to solve more problems. The research programs that we need to build on the postgraduate space would have to be an integrated education system that will support also our undergraduate education. We can't do this all in one go. So in principle, we've got to build the pipeline for people then to become postgraduate students, and this actually starts in the schools. We've got to reverse the outflow of talent from our country, and that is to make it more exciting for people to do or to follow their passions inside of our country. And it's not a bad thing. We must attract international people to come and work with us. They've got different experiences and they can support us and help us to solve more of our own issues. And then in terms of commercialization and development of the solutions or that we've tried to find during our research process, it's no use it sits in a journal paper somewhere. We have to make sure that in a way it comes back to be able to create a better world for all of us. And as mentioned before, we need to start promoting, could be small, like a Silicon Valley, but high-tech firms. And high-tech doesn't only have to solve high-tech problems. It could solve low-tech problems in a very nice way. If we go on to the engineering education landscape, the country has 14 higher education institutions that provide postgraduate qualifications. 8 of them are traditional universities, 5 of them are universities of technology, and then the outlier is UNISA, which is our distance education institution. And if you look in that report, you will find these universities are providing a very large range of different topics, different types of programs. Some of them are course-based, some of them are purely research-based, and everyone according to the skill sets of the staff that they've got around them. And you will find sometimes that depending on which province they are, in which economic sector that area is actually functioning, the focus will be more on that type of industry than it would be if you're just in Johannesburg. The research mainly is constrained by the low numbers of academic staff who have PhDs. So if you want to lead or supervise a PhD student, you must of course have your own PhD to show for that. The number of staff, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You will see we've listed all the universities with the number of staff in the engineering faculty, on the engineering part of the faculties, because universities calls these faculties all different names. So it's not a lot of people in the country that actually have PhDs and working in educational institutions. But I think all the universities have got a program to increase or improve the situation. One other factor that we are supporting is the creation of research chairs within the different universities, and you will see they are all differently endowed, and it usually is about very specific fields of expertise that the DSI nowadays will support to create more knowledge and to try and produce PhD and master students faster. If we look at the master's enrollment, and this is also not high-tech, we will see from 2000 to 2014 the data that we have. For the first 10 years, more or less, the enrollment for master's degree was pretty static, and you will see a very similar trend with the PhDs. But I'm still trying to figure out what happened in 2009, because suddenly almost all the universities, if you look at their stats, started to enroll many, many more master students as well as PhD students. And the rate at which they were increasing, if you look at the whole period, it was about 9.3% average annually. But the last 7 years or so, the increase has been remarkably improved. But the good news story is that the participation of everybody in our country within these master's programs, and they are graduating in similar type of ratios. You will see that the African population has eaten into this whole increasing number, and percentage-wise, we are now at quite a high level of around about just over 40%, whereas the participation of some of the other groups, although it increased, it became much more representative of what the universities are supposed to be in the country. And that is a fantastic good news story. I guess if we wait long enough, it may be asymptotically going to some ratio, but we're not there yet. In terms of the doctoral enrollment, you will see exactly the same type of trend. That from 2009, roughly, the numbers increased quite a bit, although PhD students are still in far smaller numbers than they are for anybody else. It's about 20% of what the master's degrees enrollments are. And once again, the same good news story is the more and more people, or the shall I say, the participation of all the groups in the country is becoming more equitable in these programs, despite some of the challenges that many people have. It's much nicer to go and take a nice job than stay afterwards for PhD studies. And it might have something to do with the economy, I don't know. When I was a student, if the economy went down, everybody stayed on for postgraduate studies. When the economy started growing, we couldn't find postgrad students to work with us. So there may be another story behind the story. The graduates, in terms of the master's degrees, the typical time that they're supposed to take, or the benchmark time, is 2 years. It's actually just a 1-year program. The average time to their degree is 3 years. And we know that most universities are trying to figure out why this is. And in principle, if you look at what's happening, is we're all overcooking a master's degree. So we will have to work on that. The average time for a PhD to graduation is about 4.3 years. I've seen the stats, some of them, it varies from about 3.4 to 6.4 years. So if you get stuck in a place where it takes 6.4 years, you must ask your supervisor very hard questions about that. But all of these things is a positive trend for the country. And you will see, just like the enrollments, the graduations look very similar in terms of the trend. The question about gender is always something that myself and Alison has to answer. It's like, how come this happened? So it is still very much a male-dominated space, although slowly the number of women in engineering is increasing, and there are quite a number of complicated issues why this may be the case or not. If one looks at the undergraduate programs at most universities, and I've been a dean for a while, and in that time, I can give you an example for mining engineering. The number of young ladies doing mining engineering in the undergraduate program were 35% of the whole class by the time that I finished my term. And it is continuing to be like that. So we've got lots of women who it doesn't matter even to go into the mining industry, although there are some very interesting challenges there to work there. And not because of violence as such, sometimes they just didn't think that women function slightly differently. If we look at the gender perspective, question always is it true that the whole profession, the whole working environment inhibits the participation of women in the workplace, and especially also the participation of women in postgraduate engineering programs? And the number of the reasons that we found from the various research inputs, it's always a lack of adequate funding, but I think that is across the board. But sometimes women has got different needs. There are, of course, negative stereotypes. I won't tell you how I entered the profession. It was much more fun in those days than now, because we had to answer very awkward questions. And there may still be some discriminatory sentiments from our male peers. It's like, so what on earth is a girl doing in this space? It is diminishing, but it still happens. And I'm afraid to say I pick up some of these conversations even in the younger generation, which I did not expect. And in terms of an unthinking industry, I'll give you one example. When women work in the mining industry and they've got to go into the mine on a shift, they're usually very good at what they're doing, but there are no specific ablution facilities for women downstairs or down in the mine. And then the clothing that they would issue everybody would look exactly the same boiler suit. And that doesn't actually quite work well for ladies. And once we've looked at the human factor of how women work in such an industry and pointed out to the mining companies that you must look at all these factors. And it's not treating women differently, it's just make it possible for them to function optimally. They've changed that, so that's no longer an issue. And then, of course, often, and this is true for not only women, it is one has to give back. So once you've done your first degree, one's community often expects you to go back and now go and you must work so that you can give back to the community in some way. There are these expectations. And of course, many careers were not available, or shall I say, a chosen pathway for women in the past, but now we can choose anything we like. And there are quite a number of World Economic Forum studies on this matter, and I'm not going to put my foot into that. I'll leave that to some other dudes. And every university and every company will have their own set of programs, initiatives to try and enhance the number of women to study in the postgraduate programs at universities. If we look at the employability and demand, here is something which is about almost the deindustrialization or the recolonization of our country, that because we do not, I'll put it differently, if we look at the low and medium technology industries that we have, if you speak to these captains of those industries, they will bluntly tell you we do not need postgraduate qualified people. They are way too expensive. And so the type of work that they sometimes have to do for people are not for highly skilled people. So they will do that in their way. And this forms part of what we have to counter nowadays, and that's probably part why the government wants to develop us to use technology more so that we in a way can leapfrog where we've been pulled down to. And unless we have a lot of highly skilled, and I mean specialist type of skills that are sticking around in the country, many of the international companies will not come and invest here unless it's only to, again, sell low and medium technology solutions to us. And we know that we can do all these fancy things. If we look at the where are engineers employed at the moment, and there's a purpose for this slide, you will see the color coding is for each of the engineering, the broad engineering disciplines. There are many little ones in between. See, we've got mining industry, quite a bit, in manufacturing, a lot of participation. Then the last big one is about the financial intermediation, insurance, so it's like the money business. And to its left is transport, storage, and communication. And then the middle one is about construction, and between construction and manufacturing is how do we generate electricity, and gas and water supply. So those are bulk infrastructure issues. The biggest need typically would be for mechanical engineers in that space. But you'll see the orange block is typically electrical, electronic, and communications engineers. And there are a scattering of civil. So the whole engineering team of all the disciplines are actually necessary. And if you see where the current needs are, it would kind of reflect where the technology is moving towards, that people would need more engineers that cannot count electrons, but that can deal with them in some way. So what would be the value proposition for industry to hire a postgraduate student or a person with a postgraduate qualification? I think we've enhanced their critical thinking and their problem-solving skills. They can now do research and develop and innovate in many ways. And I do think we need to upgrade our type of interaction with these students to enhance their innovation skills. And we will create a lot of very specialized leading-edge skills. And if we align that with where the government thinks that we need the technology to support our work that we do in the country, that will just be so much better. So we all need to talk, what kind of skills do we need? If we have postgraduate specialists, it will help us to stimulate the outward-looking for innovative type of industries. How can we also support the rest of the world and create an export economy for ourselves? And then if we do use high-tech people with higher level of skills, is it possible for us then to move our industry into a higher level? Not the whole industry has to be there, but we need pockets that we can feed for the rest that we need to run the country. This supply and demand graph, you will see there was a question earlier about the disparity between supply on this side and demand on that side. You will see, and it came out of those other graphs as well, that the number of electronic engineers in demand is much higher than the current supply. And one can go through that. We need more mining engineers and metallurgists. And then on the other side, industrial engineers, we probably have to not produce few of them, but find better ways for them to be used, as would be the chemical engineers. If I look at the international benchmarking, and I've got 5 minutes left, we used a number of factors, the efficiency indicators as well as the effectiveness indicators, to try and see where South Africa fits into the international picture. The one is about participation, and that is about where do we fit in. 2008 would be these white numbers, 2017 would be the black numbers. How many of the population of the university going age are actually in university? And you will see we've improved from 15% in 2008 to 19% currently, or what, 2 years ago. So it is roughly static. Malaysia has gone down somewhat, and you will see that Korea has always been very high participation, and that's probably a good reason why they are doing economically as well as they currently do. This is another graph of the participation factor. On the x-axis, it is the engineers as a percentage of the overall student graduates. And these would be at the currently what we call the NQF levels 6 to 8. So that would be a first degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. Versus on the y-axis, we've got the number of doctoral engineering graduates as a percentage of all the PhDs that we produce. And you can see where we sit. We only produce about 265 graduates of that nature. So this is on a linear scale, so it's difficult to say where one should be. If we look at where Germany is currently, they've got a well-running economy, and China has been pumping engineers. They've got, I think, 3 million or so engineering students at any time, in comparison with the few that we've got. In terms of progression, we are also comparing quite well. If you look at how many people progress from a bachelor's degree to a master's, or from a master's to a PhD level, and the second group of the darker colors would be for women, you can see that we are doing pretty well in terms of the overall picture that we see here. So we're not doing too badly over there. And then a graph, I can only suspect if you do better than 100% that you've imported quite a number of people who did not start with you. If we look at our case again, the completion ratio for master's degree students, about 87 overall in the country. And for engineering students, those are 77%, and then 58 and 52% for PhD students. So we do not, as a professional type of faculties that we are, stand out too much for what we're doing. And if we look at the cohort study that was done for some South African students, those pass rates or the completion rates is just above 50%. How efficient is our education system? There are two parameters on this graph. Firstly is the number of staff teaching in engineering faculties with a PhD, and those little dots are the number of PhD students per staff member with a PhD. So in China, you've got more or less one mentor for every PhD student, so they must have lots of staff. But only 23% of the total number of staff do have PhDs. I don't know how many they have. The other parameter that's often being used is the number of engineering graduates per million population per year. And here again, some people use that as a measure of one's progress in terms of the economic status. So we sit way at the bottom of this whole picture. And the size of those dots also represent the number of graduates per million population per year. So we can really improve on that. One of the last slides, if we look at doctoral education efficiency, one of the parameters that's being used is the number of publications that is being produced per million of population per year. I've got no idea how someone gets to that type of measure. But we sit at about 11.8, and we do not compare very well with countries like Germany and Korea and Malaysia that we would like to emulate in terms of our economic growth. One of the issues that we often find when we've got to explain why our publication rates are relatively low is about the places where we publish our papers are not always in engineering journals, they're often in science journals. And I'll steal 1 minute for this. So in conclusion, we should not create, it was recommended that we do not create more engineering programs, that we, in terms of our interinstitutional collaboration, work closer together to work on much bigger projects to the benefit of the country, that we keep on promoting the involvement of women in engineering, especially on the postgraduate level, that we investigate ways in which to attract young people into the academia. It appears not to be as exciting as they want it to be, especially the younger generation. And then to work with international universities and to become much more attractive in terms of what we do, what research programs we have to attract international people. And then and this is already being done, to increase the number of staff with PhDs so that we can have more supervision capacity. And then we've got to re-industrialize our country, and hopefully that is what parts of the presidential plans are all about, and the National Development Plan. And the last slide, so government to take initiatives to develop a vision and implementation plan for postgraduate engineering studies to make us a more competitive destination for people to come to, and not say if you're outside of the country you can't come. I think we need everybody to come and work with us. And of course, we at the higher education institutions will support the transition of our high-tech industries, so there are a lot of changes that we have to make to be able to follow suit and also to guide in many ways how we're going to implement these new strategies to re-industrialize. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nake, for that presentation. Colleagues, I'll limit this to just 2 questions, if you have any. Is the consensus study carried out by ASAF on engineering programs in South Africa? Any questions? Yes?
Hello. Hi. My name is Mark Taylor. I'm from UCT, a current mechanical engineering master's student. So I found your talk very interesting because I find myself also facing the questions about what to do with my future, to look abroad or to try and find something to do here. I was just curious to know, how did you quantify demand for each profession? Yeah, just how you went about that. I'd be interested to know.
I don't quite recall how we got to those numbers. I think the various industries were polled to ask of these type of engineering professions in terms of the disciplines. What are those that you need more of, or do you have some vacancies in them, and where are you moving towards? It's I can get the raw data for you if you like, but it's not a thumb suck. It is based on interviews, on surveys, and all of those. It's a good question. Do we stay or do we go? My advice is stay. It's going to be big fun quite soon.
Thank you very much, Professor Lake, for that presentation. Like I said, we are running short of time, so I'll call on Professor Aaron Shizumba, who is going to talk on Northwest University activities in BRICS and related opportunities. His dossier is on your program.
Thanks, Prof. Dumela. If my profile is not there, it's here, standing in front of you. I'm a senior lecturer of communications in this university, and I'm also the deputy dean in Faculty of Humanities. Mine will be very short. It's the profiles of what we did as the BRICS desk. Our function as the BRICS desk is to coordinate researchers and to coordinate all academic activities within the BRICS countries. Now, at the Northwest University, we are coordinating all academic work, research work, and community work that the Northwest University can contribute to BRICS activities. These are some of our niche areas or thematic areas that we have currently. We are leading on energy group with the University of Limpopo. So we are coordinating that focus area within the BRICS universities. We have BRICS education, where we are hosting the president of BRICS education universities. So the president of that focus area is sitting within our university. The BRICS youth, we are coordinating that also within the BRICS universities. BRICS, this is Council for Exercise and Sports Sciences. We just got a new partnership that we're finalizing with DERCO on IORA activities. They're establishing an academic desk within IORA. IORA is the India Ocean Rim Association. So those who are interested in water engineering and water sciences, we're finalizing that partnership with DERCO. I've mentioned that, only that the last bullet there, the DHET initiatives, which is education. So we are contributing on that activities as the university, Northwest University. When the inputs needed within the education space, from basic education or foundation education, we are contributing to that. There's other universities that are contributing on other thematic areas there within the BRICS activities. The main function of the thematic group energy are those ones: to coordinate the programs, the projects, which is either community or funded projects, strategic projects, and then we have the academic mobility, which is the partner collaborations of academics within the universities of BRICS countries. So we share that. And it also includes the student exchanges, which is student mobilities. We just had one of our PhD students in Russia now with Professor Quintin. They came back last weekend. Educational research and innovation collaborations. Our transfer office technology, FR, was in China on technology transfers activities. So we're participating on that also. Energy for development, this is what we, in collaboration with the University of Limpopo, we're leading within the BRICS universities on this activity. There's other participating universities. Now we've listed all BRICS countries there. Yes, our highlight on energy with the partnership of University of Limpopo there, as you can see. These are stats on that shows the contributions of us as a country, South Africa, within the BRICS universities or BRICS countries. That the contribution of the technologies or innovations that universities of South Africa are making within BRICS countries as compared to the GDPs of those countries. So you can see as they highlighted our contributions there. Our strategy for energy is finalized. We also, you'll see on the next slide to come, designed the energy plan, which is the energy strategy for the province, which we're still in negotiation with the Premier's office in this province, in our province. But the plan that we have, which is part of this energy strategy, is almost on the piloting phase. We have tested some of the researches with small, just like the University of Limpopo is doing with their biogas projects in communities. We have tested some of them already. We're finalizing that with the Provincial Premier's office. We're responding to sustainable development goals of the UN, as all of us within the BRICS, so that we are also relevant with other countries that are not members of BRICS. There's our contribution as South Africa. At the end there, you can see access to electricity were up to 84%, so which means almost all households are using. That is what the Premier was mentioning here. If ESCOM can go angry, we are in trouble. Access to clean cooking, renewable energy, energy efficiency. There's our percentage there on your far right as the country, South Africa, compared to other countries within the BRICS countries. Our strength on energy is nuclear, coal, renewable energy, hydrogen, integrated, smart grids and hybrids. So we also feature on the ICTs, as the first speaker was presenting about digitization and the 4IR. So we, on a majority of our researches and within the projects that we trying to innovate also includes ICTs. We have this chair, which is coal and clean activities, which is led by Professor Quintin. This is the professor who was in Russia for 3 weeks with one of our PhD students. They were there testing one of the machines that they are piloting for coal processes. So we have the NRF Sachi Chair on coal research. We have a project with ESCOM specializing on emission control, and a project for collaboration between DST and NRF for biofuel. This is almost the same as the one with the University of Limpopo, that they have projects in communities on biofuel. It's a continuation of our chair that Professor Quintin is leading on coal and clean coal activities. So there's our partners within the BRICS countries, Russia, India, and China. We also have other countries that are not members of BRICS who are also participating in this chair. Yesterday on our workshop for BRICS, we had about 13 presentations that are giving us input, suggestions and ideas and overview of how activities on within energy from various universities and presenters. We had a lot of PhD students there, candidates who presented their projects yesterday. The way forward on energy and development, we planning, on having joint degrees, student partnerships, summer schools, but that this will be in collaboration with all the universities that are contributing within our energy development group. And we're putting up the roadmap as part of our strategy so that we can see how we're implementing our activities. This is our part of our energy plan. This is part of the energy plan that we have designed for the province. So some of activities that you see there are what we're proposing to the province. Some have started smaller Nyana projects in communities, like rural Taung, villages in Swazraineke and some of that. We have some of the bio projects that have started. This is when we're testing the feasibility of our strategy for the energy plan for the province. There's some of the projects, smaller projects that we have started. BRICS education, as I've mentioned, so it's also, these are the members, we're coordinating that. They are writing a book also with one university in Russia and one university in India on BRICS proposed curriculums, how we can share curriculums within the BRICS countries. I will go to, that's our new partnership with DERCO, that the proposal from DERCO is that when they set up the academic, let me go there, the Indian RIM, which is academic desk, they will want us to lead on that. So those who are doing engineering or innovations within water, because of South Africa's position within the two oceans. So that's why we're participating on that. So we'll be hosting that as the Northwest University here. Those are their activities that they do. We much interested on that academic group, that we can influence the curriculums, we can influence research, we can influence innovations within the IORA group. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for your presentation. Any question for Aaron? Yes?
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for the interesting talk. I just wanted to find out in terms of the possibilities to collaborate with this project, but maybe also to know if there are other working groups that focus on other areas, because it seems this working group focuses on on energy. So if you have other interests, for example, our interest is manufacturing, we would like to know, is there a place where we can tap into this cooperation with the BRIC countries? Or even in these projects, if they have specific areas, for example, we are looking at energy efficiency issues within manufacturing. So definitely, I think that could be of interest to some of the work that you're doing. So if people are interested in finding the opportunities, how do they go about it?
Can I take the last question, if any? Thank you very much. Aaron, please, can you attempt to answer the question?
Thanks very much. Yeah, we open to other focus areas. We just mentioned that are active for now. We have another focus area which is coming from international relations and politics, as in governance. We have another focus area from the provincial government, which we don't know how are they going to name it or call it. But yes, we are open, and manufacturing is relevant to a lot of innovations that are cross-cutting within majority of our focus areas there. And we are there on the website of the university, the contacts. If you go to BRICS at Northwest, you will see the tab there. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you very much, Aaron. Please, can we clap for Aaron? Thank you very much. We've come to the end of this session. Thank you very much, colleagues. You've been very good audience. I'll hand you over to my colleague Lizelle, who has a few announcements to make.
Thank you. I would just like to say that the industrial engineer in me has kicked in. So as we are moving behind schedule more and more and more, I'm going to arrange as follows, that we're going to have lunch now, but have a good lunch, not rush it. We be back at 2:30. But then I will, in the meanwhile, make sure that there will be a parallel venue, so that the end of the day session on advanced manufacturing can start so long, even if we run over time here. So don't worry, we're going to continue this day with beautiful presentations and nice discussions. Have a nice lunch. Those of you who weren't here yesterday, just follow the group of people. It's just behind the student center. It's set up for us already. We get back here at 3:30, and if it's necessary, we will break away in a parallel session to make sure that we are in time today. And something, sorry? Half past 2. Ag, 3:30. Ag nee man, sorry. Jy mag my te mekaar, ek dink Afrikaans en Engels te mekaar. It's called, it's 1:10 now, so it will be 2:30. But please, let us start at 2:30. So it's a nice time that we have. We can have a look at exhibitions, but let us be ready to start again at 2:30. And if we need to break away for the parallel session, we do that. Thank you.